I grew up in the city of Quilmes, near from the downtown of the city of Buenos Aires. When I began my college studies, I moved to the city of Buenos Aires. I go to the Universidad Argentina de la Empresa. My mother was a convert in the church, some around 11 years old. Her very best friend was a member of the church, so she always was connected with the activities and all the things related with the family of her friend. My grandparents from the side of my mother never converted to the church. When my father was a baby, around a year old, the missionaries met my grandmother and my grandmother. So both of them baptized in the church. The eldest sister of my father too. Eventually my father grew up in the church. So at the time of the marriage, my father said to my mother, well, it's time to get baptized. And she said, okay. For the part of my mother, we have a part from Italy, and in that period arrived my grandparents. And for the other part of my mother's side, for my grandpa, mother, we have very deep roots in Argentina. In fact, we are direct descendants of one of the founders of Buenos Aires City, Juan de Garay. And for the part of my father, my surname is Schpilman. They were from Poland. It's a story very interesting because it was hard to me to find out that part of the story. My grandpa lived my father and my grandma when he was a year old. They were living in a place called Rio Negro. Black River is a province in the south of Argentina. In that place, my grandma know the missionaries. But my grandpa, he reunited again with my father when he was 18 years old. So for 18 years old, he didn't know anything about his father. In a certain way, when you start to grow up and mature and understand what it means to be older, you start to understand why. I get access to the record of the marriage of my grandparents. In that record, I discovered or confirmed that they came from Poland. My very first question was if they were Jews, you know, Schpilman, Poland. They came from a town called Kumno. Both of my grandparents came after the first big war, and in 1923 they arrived to Argentina. I started to research about this town in Poland. At the time that the Nazis take the country, the half of the country, all the Jewish people was placed in a ghetto. But we have an NGO here in Argentina called AMIA that they recover all the graves in the cemeteries, the Jewish cemeteries, and they have a database, and I put the names of my great-grandparents. Both of them are buried in a Jewish cemetery. So in that way, I close and confirm the story that they were Jewish. That's made me always think in the words of the Father Lehigh. Always will came to this continent that people that will lead by the Spirit of God. And I think that very same prophecy still remain active. There is more funny things about my grandparents. They live in the same building. I have that information from the marriage record. They were neighbors, Abraham and Sarah. And they live inside the very same boundaries that the current world I live now. I was called to be a bishop of that place, of that world. My others great-grandparents also came from a place called Corrientes. It's a province in the north of our country. I get also the marriage record. They also live a few blocks from my current house, so I was the bishop of them too. We can see the blessings. My own mother-in-law migrated from Paraguay to Argentina, and she met the church with 15 years old here in Buenos Aires. So that decision to came to Buenos Aires changed her life and the life of my wife and her siblings. Talking about migration, I have two special sons with autism, and one of the reasons to move to the current part of the city that we live is to get closer to their therapists. They are very special for us, and we love them. Some days are very hard. It's not easy to deal with this for us every day, but we know that the Lord always has their own purposes. And when we kneel down and ask for inspiration and counsel, He touched our hearts, our minds. He comforts us. My oldest son, David, expressed me the desire to meet the prophet, to say hi to him, to know him, because he loves a lot President Monson. And when he died, he felt very bad because he said that I had the opportunity to meet with him and he doesn't. When he told me that, I felt a strong impression that in some way I should make everything possible to accomplish that request. I never imagined how that will happen. When was announced that the prophet will come to our country in August, so my mother called me crying and say, "Pablo, now the desire of David will be accomplished." In that moment, the Spirit came to me and I felt the impression to writing down a letter directly to the prophet and share the feelings that my son had for him, for the gospel, and for President Monson, asking that David wants to say hello to him. I show his Book of Mormon because he's our official reader. Every night he read for all the family the Book of Mormon. And I sent the letter and he answered. Eventually the day came. Prophet, the President Nelson, go down from his car, approach to our family and say hello to David. And David say hello and show his Book of Mormon. He keep a few seconds with our family, say thank you for our faith, for our efforts. You know, the prophet of the Lord with a big agenda, a very busy agenda, take a minute for us. And that let me think with the days that was the same with the Lord. For me, 1 minute of the prophet was very significant. I think that migration is tough decision. It's no easy to leave behind your family, your culture, your tradition. Even to move in a neighborhood in the very same city is hard. But we can trust, we need to trust in what we are feeling. In my case, as a Christian and as a people that, as a guy that believe in God, for me, it's God that decide my path. Most of the time, it's not very clear why. Sometimes it's easy. I should study in another city. My wife live in another city. Or I receive a job offer that is good and I will move. Sometimes it's easy to understand why you should move. Sometimes not. And you should trust in your heart and in your mind that in certain way that you don't know still, that will be a blessing for you. In time, the truth will be revealed unto you and you will see why that decision was so important.